I tell most women I talk to, especially my daughters, if you're going to date a man and you want a relationship that will last and you know how to really feel this guy out, you need to wait till he's 30. Because there are chemicals shooting through that dude's body that you can never understand.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Good evening, folks. It is Wednesday, February 5th. You're over the hump, and you are listening to the Empower Hour with me, Don Wyckoff. Now, if you didn't know, the Empower Hour was designed to help you take a different course in life, man. Take a different path to inspire you to move forward closer to the passions that you have in your life, because it is in that. It is the key. With me tonight is somebody that does just that, follows the passion. He found his purpose. Great dude. I've had a lot of time in my life to spend with him. He's the executive director of the Foothills Performing Arts Center in Oneonta, New York. He's a father, he's a husband, and he's a pretty good dude. Got a hell of a beard, too. Mr. Jeff Doyle, how are you, buddy?
Hey, Don, how's it going?
Oh, doing fantastic. Now, as you know, the whole purpose of my show is to inspire others through the stories of common folks that have some pretty uncommon things happen in their lives that shape them and they move them forward. You know, I think most of us, when we're trying to move forward, we look at things in their totality and we become quickly discouraged about, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh, that's a lot of work to get to this point, and we'll quickly discourage ourselves. So one of the things I like to do is to uncover the truth of a person's successes. Now, through the eyes of the folks that are writing me in now, saying to say hello to Jeff, Alex, I just told them, and the other folks that have written in with a couple questions I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
I see a guy who's very successful, has no problems in his life, and he's just killing it. What's the reality?
I'd like to think, a very fortunate person in my life, and certainly that was not just out of luck, but a lot of it has been. A lot of it has been just the planets aligning.
I like that better, yeah. Luck is, that's for clovers, man. Serendipitous happenings, though, are for people that have a calling in them. They have something in them that just keeps nudging them. Like it doesn't matter what it is. For me, it was, I used to think it was music. Turns out it wasn't music. And I didn't discover that until way later in my life, that I realized it's not music. It's entertainment. It's communication. It's giving folks the opportunity to express where they wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise. You know?
Certainly.
So that really fires me up. And I love the fact that we capture somebody that is, very relevant in our community, as someone that puts on a lot of arts and entertainment, feeds our need for the chuckles and for the music and for the theater and the drama, and you give opportunities to people. Dude, I've watched you, man. I've watched you take people with disabilities, bring them in from, I know you were also on the board of directors, right, at ARC at one time?
Yeah.
I don't know if you still are, but I know you were a part of that. And bringing folks in with disabilities and giving them an opportunity to film a music video. Dude, I was so honored to be a part of that, but that was your baby, to give these guys a voice. And I don't know if you realize how much that impacted them.
Certainly I still have some of those folks from that music video see me pretty regularly, and we're still in contact with a lot of them. In fact, I worked with one up until recently. We had to retire poor Jason LeBeau. His mind was starting to go on him.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, he's still going strong. He recently got a new apartment.
Good for him, man.
Yeah,
That's great. And I love seeing that forward movement, because a lot of people would tell him it's impossible. Don't waste your time. Why don't you go to a group home? Why don't you do these things?
That's right.
I just love that about you. And, I was telling you earlier, there are people that will put these flowery, quotes up on their thing, and maybe they really want those things to be true. Maybe that resonates with them, but very few of us follow through with those things that resonate and do anything with it. What I like to do is take a person back to the beginning. What was some of your first memories that shaped what you would ultimately become in life, that you can remember, that were your first kind of nudgings towards, whether it was arts and entertainment, whether it was working with, disadvantaged people and moving them forward? What were those things? What was your life like as a young kid?
All right. Well, my earliest memory that I can tell is with my mother. We were moving out of our first home. It was a small trailer in a trailer park in Sydney, New York. And we were just laying on the living room floor in this empty room, sharing a Coke. And that is, I may have been 4 years old at that point.
And that's one of your first memories.
That is the first, as far as I can tell.
Okay, so that's the snapshots. I love stuff like that. So already, if we were to just dissect that and look at it a little bit, what do we see? We see a connection, son and mom, and just this very simplistic sharing of souls, man.
I mean, frankly, throughout all of the tumultuous times that I've encountered throughout my life, many of which were, my own fault, if I'm being honest. My folks were always the kind of the thing I could count on, the people that I knew would be there. And, I've always considered myself very fortunate to have had that. So no matter, what I was doing at the time, my folks were there if I needed them. And I know a lot of people don't have that to fall back on. So I definitely lucked out in the parents department. But as far as other memories go, and ones that are related to what I do now, my dad was playing in bands since before I was born.
That's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah, so I was watching my old man play guitar and jamming out with my Uncle Tim in the garage. And just watching him do his thing and getting to go to gigs and, learning how to play guitar. Of course, he taught me how to play my first few chords and just kind of said, all right, you'll figure it out from here. Here's the basics. And, getting to spend those kinds of moments with my folks was always, really big for me.
Now, what did you most fascinate with when you were watching your dad and your uncle out there jamming? Was it the cool factor? Was it the musical expression? Was it the camaraderie, or all of the above?
I mean, certainly there was a combination of things, but, back in my preteens and early teens, when it came to music, man, I was obsessed.
Me too.
I wanted it all of the time. Certainly, I've dialed that back a little in my 40s here. But at the time, it was just a fascination with music itself, and wanting to be able to do this thing. Not only because of, but like with my dad, and we had this thing in common. He was into football and hunting, and if I'm being honest, neither of those things were ever of interest to me.
Me neither.
So music was the one thing that we had always had to kind of bond over.
And you were able to jam with him then?
Yeah,
ultimately?
I mean, we never played in a band together,
no.
Which, there's still time left in both our lives for that sort of thing. But,
Is your dad still active playing? Is he still...
He and my uncle will get together with their buddies in the garage and drink beers and smoke cigars and probably other things.
Yeah.
And but he's not out gigging anymore. No, he's I think over all of that. And you know what? Frankly, he played shows right up until he was, I'd say, in his late 50s. I stopped like in my late 30s, so I got to give the man some credit.
Well, we'll get to why that happens. Life happens, and it changes those things. The things that I thought were important when I got out of prison and started music. Music was the salvation for me. It gave me identity, self-confidence. I put myself up against challenges that I knew most people don't do. And,
sure.
And that was character building for me. It wasn't about ego as much as it was about ego, but I didn't think it was. I thought I was just beating demons.
Gotcha.
But along with beating those demons, your ego starts getting bigger and stronger and thicker, and it hides itself in the weirdest ways throughout your life.
Sure.
How did that resonate with you throughout?
Well, I don't know. I suppose the two go hand in hand, but for me, when I hit my teenage years right on through until my early to mid-20s, I just was very, I would just say, selfish. All I thought about was what am I doing? What's going to help me? How am I going to benefit from these things? And also, I wasn't making time for things that to me now are important. Like I missed weddings for people that cared about me and I cared for as well, or I should have cared for more. And it was all because I had other things that were more important to me at the time. And I didn't think much of it. And you look back on some of those things and it's embarrassing a little bit to think about who you once were and, just to be grateful to have overcome all of that.
Gratitude, yeah, that is something that we really start to really understand as you get older and you start to have kids. And
Yes.
that's one of the things. I just want to give you this little reminder. And your wife, Morgan?
Yes.
Right, yeah. So you probably won't remember. Well, you may remember this, but I remember I was doing a video for Emanation, one of your bands, and you guys were really killing it, man. I mean, this band was, it was the it band for metal in our area. And you guys were really taking off and doing cool shows, and all this stuff was happening. We were filming a music video, and I will never forget. I did this sweep away. And I saw this girl over in the corner looking at you like she was just eye raping you, dude. And I was so jealous in that moment of like, you lucky bastard. Because I wasn't in a band at the time. It was all ego. And it turns out she ends up being the most supportive, wonderful mate for you. It was like the perfect thing. And it was an interesting thing for me. If you still have that video, she's looking at you in that video. I think you'll see that face that I'm talking about. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I just want a woman to want me that bad. You know what I mean? I really thought that in that moment. And I think I told you afterwards.
You did.
And you said something along the lines of, yeah, that's my girl or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, how long had you guys been together before that?
I mean, not very.
So it was kind of new.
Well, it's a good story. I think you'll enjoy this.
Yeah.
So I met my wife. I had dropped out of college because I was a mess, and I had just turned 21. So I took a leave of absence before I could do any further damage to my GPA.
Good call.
So I ended up working as a line cook at the Unadilla Diner for my aunt at the time. I'm 21 years old. And I come into work one day, and there is this absolutely adorable person. I was going to say woman, but turns out this person was 16 years old. So I go in the back in the kitchen and I say, hey, does anybody know who that cute girl is sitting out at the counter? And her mother turns around, looks me dead in the face and says, that's my daughter, and she's only 16 years old. And I went, oh my God, I am so sorry. So, of course, I was like, all right, well, that's the end of that. Well, her brother, who I also worked with, happened to tell her what I had said. And so all of a sudden, I've got this 16-year-old showing up and dropping me little notes at work. So I had to be like, hey, look, this can't happen.
Right.
Like, I'm flattered.
Not a big deal in your 30s with the age difference, but certainly an
right.
issue.
At the time, I was like, you know what? You are adorable, but boy, oh boy, I work with your mom. The legal age issue here, no good. So, thanks, but bye-bye.
Yeah.
And so we both got into completely toxic, terrible relationships for 4 years, or just about 4 years. And my wife moved to California with her boyfriend at the time. And we both went through these really turbulent breakups. I got cheated on. My significant other of nearly 4 years cheated on me with her best friend's fiance.
Wow.
Pretty messed up. They'd gone to pick out a wedding dress.
She was together. Awesome, huh?
Yeah, wow. Isn't that crazy?
Got to tell you, Jeff, I don't think this one was about you, buddy.
Yeah, no, this one was not about me. This is where I learned about all the things. Like, I got a taste of my own medicine because I
love this.
I was not necessarily like, I wasn't emotionally abusive, but I was emotionally unavailable.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yep.
Often looked at as a narcissist because you were...
Yeah. I don't want to deal with all of this. I'm going to go. So anyway, after, a really solid 3.5, nearly 4 years of just someone treating me terribly and then, leaving me on the worst possible terms, Morgan, who I had met at 16... just kind of chance reached out to me on MySpace of all places.
Oh yeah, I remember that space.
Yeah, and said, "Hey, I'm probably moving back to New York, and I'm newly single." And I went, "Oh my God, what are the chances? That's incredible." It's been, all this time. You're almost 20 years old now. We could actually see where this thing goes.
How long after your separation does she reach out to you? There's a reason
I was still living in the apartment that I had been broken up in. Like, it was not long.
We're talking month, maybe, right?
Not even.
Okay, so this is what I mean about these serendipitous connections.
Yeah.
When you met her in that moment, that knowing that makes you go back and go, who is that?
Yeah.
It's not just the physical looks of this person. It's an energy
That's
thing,
correct.
man. And I don't think we understand that at the time.
Yes.
So go on, go with your story.
All right. So, yes, you're absolutely right. Now, when I had first met her, obviously, I had no idea how old she was, and that whole thing happened.
Right.
But this is someone who I'd crossed paths with regularly for the next couple of years, because I worked with her mom and her brother. So I was seeing her regularly. I got to know her family. Turns out my father went to school with her mom. Her grandpa used to be the custodian at my church that I grew up in, and all this stuff. Anyway, long story short, she lets me know she's coming back to New York. We've both just gotten out of these toxic relationships in which we've both been cheated on. And I'm so excited. And then she says, but there's one thing I got to tell you. I said, oh, what's that? She said, I'm pregnant. And so, of course, that makes you second guess.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming. Go ahead.
Yeah. So she moves back, and her first day back, her brother brings her to the Corfu Diner, where I am now waiting tables in Oneonta. And so, we get to see each other, and she's very, clearly like 4 months pregnant. And at this point, I'm like, man, am I going to try to date this person now? I'm not ready to be anybody's dad or stepdad, or because I was, from the age of, let's say, 15 to nearly 25, of selfish mess.
Most men are.
Yeah, I'd like to think it's not just a me thing.
Dude, it's not a you thing. I often tell girls, or when I'm trying to suggest, they're like, oh, should I date this? I tell most women I talk to, especially my daughters, if you're going to date a man and you want a relationship that will last and you know how to really feel this guy out, you need to wait till he's 30, because there are chemicals shooting through that dude's body that you can never understand.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right. So, and this brings me back to the band I was in at the time, Emanation. They were all like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. I've, had like these feelings for this person for a long time and wasn't able to ever do anything about that. And, the planets here are aligning, and I feel like it would be worth it to give it a try. And my friends / bandmates all thought I had completely gone off the deep end, and they
Kill switch, engage.
yeah. And so, frankly, so did I. I wasn't entirely sure that I hadn't lost my mind either.
Right.
This was a huge life-changing decision for me. But if I'm being honest, when I turned 25, and I thought I'd been straight edge until I went to college. And then I started experimenting, and I, dabbled a little bit here and there in high school. But once I went to college, the gloves came off, and I was just smoking weed, drinking all the time.
Yeah.
But I'd never done anything much more than that. Well, right before my wife got a hold of me and said, hey, I'm coming back and I'm pregnant, and all of a sudden it looked like I could be somebody's stepdad. I had tried cocaine for the first time.
It'll make you try it.
And it was the last time.
Yeah.
It was because then I was like, okay, I have to get it together, because it's not about me anymore. It's about these two other people now that I have to be there for, and I don't need to be,
I want to snapshot that right there, man.
Right.
All right. The reason I want to snapshot this is because earlier we spoke about how, you said, your dad, you wished you could have spent a little more time, doing those things. Part of why I've always been a father that loves being a father is because I learned so many things from my father, both good and bad. And like Bruce Lee, learn everything, keep what you need.
Yeah.
There were things in my father that I'll never replicate with my kids.
Sure.
And I remember how it made me feel. And because of that cathartic understanding of how, like you said, you had structure, you had a family supported you, you knew had your back.
Yes.
Somehow, in the inner knowing of Mr. Doyle, there was a thing that recognizes this is my opportunity.
Yes. Yes.
Does that resonate?
Absolutely. And, my father was always more of a strong, silent type. We didn't necessarily talk about our feelings or anything like that. And, that's not necessarily uncommon for a man of his age, from his generation. But, it was something I've decided, early on as a parent, is I'm going to be an open book with my kids about my feelings. I am not going to hide anything.
I love that, dude.
It's
my
really
guide.
It's important to me to let them know. And honestly, I got to give my mom credit, because she was always the one that said, if there's anything going on and you ever need anything, you come talk to me. And I somehow, got it in my head like it's a trap. But that was mostly because I had that built-in fear of disappointing them.
That's right. Yeah.
And so you lie and you hide things that you probably didn't need to, which actually led to something really fun happening at my family gatherings. Every Christmas Eve, we'd get together, have a little eggnog, and I would just tell my folks dumb stuff I did as a teenager.
Oh, yeah, that's always fun.
They're like, well, you can't do anything about it now, so...
Yeah.
Remember that bike that went missing? Well...
Yeah.
Yeah, so... I'm getting off track. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I think it's interesting, though, that you were at this point where this girl, pretty much of your dreams, that you realize is unapproachable because of an age difference.
Yes.
You go through this experience that you both experience the same thing.
Yep.
You then come back. Now, you're actually able to make this decision to be with this woman, but she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And you decide that regardless that I'm doing my band, regardless that I'm going to do all this, for some reason, I'm going to say yes.
It was solely based on the fact that I wanted to be with this person, and I felt that so deeply that I was willing to say, I will change my entire life. I will become a father just so that I can... I need to know if this was that thing that I thought it might be, that I could never, it was like it was just off limits.
That's right. What are we, 18 years now? 17 years, something like that? You guys been together?
Oh boy. Yeah. My son is 17. He's officially my adopted son now, by the way.
So cool,
I was able to finally get, it took us 3 attorneys, but we finally got it done.
I just did an episode on fathers and stepfathers and the importance of and how they all have impact, and that any person, you don't need to be the biological father. You don't even need to be the stepfather to be a father figure.
Agreed.
To give that beautiful gift of knowing there's a balance and that there are men that have these feelings and can commit and can be great fathers.
Yes.
But it's not just, saying it. It's not just taking them to the parks. Like you said, I always said, I hated when my parents would say, because I said so. It just built resentment, and then I just immediately I'm mad.
Yeah.
Right? And I just remember that more than anything. You could whoop my butt, but doing that because I said so thing, oh man, that got me. So I found explaining to my children why I was doing it, even though it might have been over their head, at least they felt heard.
Yes.
And that there's a reason behind what I'm saying or doing. And that
absolutely
makes it a little more fair.
Yeah, or at least easier for them to fully understand.
But it's our mindfulness of our lessons from our youth that makes you have these points, the decision points that we're talking about, that you take a different path.
Yes, it was, for me, knowing, all right, I've got to take care of this woman who's 4 months pregnant, and in 5 months I'm going to be taking care of a child, and I was barely taking care of myself at the time. And that relationship I had gotten out of had fortunately been, and I'm, certainly biased to some extent, but I felt it was entirely me on the receiving end of a whole lot of negativity and bad stuff. And just eventually like getting to that point where I was like, all right, well, I'm going to walk on eggshells. I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to deal with any more drama or fighting or any of that. And so when I, had a chance to be with Morgan, it was like, okay, well, I know what I don't enjoy in a relationship. And so I'm not going to bring that into this one. And, to this day, we have never yelled at each other.
That's so beautiful, dude.
And this entire time, like, we've had disagreements, certainly.
Yep, you talk them out.
Exactly. And, I remember very clearly, like, that's what it was like in my household when I was growing up. And so,
which side, the talking it out, or
yeah,
all right,
yeah. I got, like I said, I that was the one kind of constant I had growing up, was like, my folks were there taking care of me, and I could rely on them for pretty much anything I needed. Although there was it's a dark decade for me, like 15 to 25, where I just kind of stopped caring about most things. And
for me, it was 14 to 20 that I just stopped, being free.
Sure, yeah.
Just incarcerated.
Yeah, well, that'll do it.
I'll tell you, that small cell and the time, some people don't use the time to figure out whys.
Sure.
I have been asking why my entire life. Why do I realize that I'm a young kid as if I'm an intelligence bigger than a young kid? What is that that's happening in there? I always knew there was something else that runs these serendipitous connections that makes you think of somebody and the phone rings. There's a connection to something bigger than us.
Sure.
And it's when you follow that calling, the nudge, the things that I'm talking about all the time. So what feels good in the moment, and I don't mean in the superficial, I mean in the spiritual. What feels good?
Certainly.
Service feels good.
As far as, the serendipitousness and
I was just going to say, but that service comes into even with children.
Sure, absolutely. No, I mean, you got me wanting to talk about, like, spiritual beliefs and things like that. But, frankly, I'm convinced that I don't know. That's where I'm at. I don't necessarily believe in any one thing. I just, at this point, I feel like I'm just jealous of anyone who can say with their full heart and soul, this is the thing that is real, this is the thing that is true that I believe. And I just, like, what is that like? How does that happen? How do you have such conviction? Like, you have to have had some kind of, actual, like, come to Jesus moment where he appeared to you in your cornflakes or something.
Yeah.
I've never had that. And I'm a little jealous. I would love to have that one thing that makes me say to myself, I believe this. This is why I know this to be true.
Well, you can certainly say that about your approach to parenting and being a community contributor, because whatever that is that drives you, Jeff, you can say it's it's a job, but I know better knowing you.
Oh yeah,
I've seen your personality, I've seen your interactions with people. You are a genuine dude, so there's something that is a truth to you already. It's something you already know. You know that your purpose is to change the paths that happened to you. You didn't need to bring baggage in. You could unpack it. And when you make that decision, life starts to unfold better, brother. You get the right relationships. You get the right jobs. You get the right outlets.
I mean, frankly, it was right around that time when I turned 25 and made this, like, honestly, one of the hardest decisions of my life, to be like, all right.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
I literally can just chase this carrot of being a rock star like I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
You were already set up to do it. You already had an ass-kicking band to do it with. And you still decide, I'm going to go with Morgan.
I mean, it was one of those things, deep within that you can't deny. And, I think about where I am now and, having my son, Aiden, my adopted son, but, he's never known another father.
You are his father, period.
Right, yeah.
Dude.
I mean, it wasn't until he was 13 years old that I even sat down and had the talk with him about it, because I was like, he's going to need to know since all this paperwork's happening and stuff.
Yeah, to me, though, I think it would mean more to me to know that a man chose to be with me
He was no accident for
than
me.
to have an accident.
That's right.
That's right. I mean, there's a lot to say about that. And I think, today society's starting to see fathers in a better light than they used to. And fathers are kind of stepping up to the plate. They've got some more tool sets. They've got some more ability to reach out and learn things.
Certainly.
Any guy with just a little bit of want to do something different in the way you're parenting, go to YouTube. Look up some good positive parenting bases. What resonates with you, take it. If it doesn't, get rid of it.
I think, just in general, men have had the ability to be more emotional without being judged or feeling like, they're not manly because they are expressing their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Like certainly, I've known plenty of guys that would never be caught dead crying in public, but if the waterworks are coming on for me, I don't care who's around to see it, man.
Yeah, hey, man.
I think
that's a genuine person, though. That's somebody that's comfortable within who they are and what their expression of life is.
Sure.
You may not have a religion, so to speak, and I don't either. I don't believe in organized religion. I think anything that man can get into is already corrupted because there's interest in it. There's biased interest. You know what I mean? But it all stems from something the ancients have always known. But dude, before we had written language, we were burying people with funerary objects for the afterlife. We have always known there's something else.
Sure.
It's following those little paths, those little nudges. And I just want to break in real quick and thank you all. You are listening to WIOX 91.3 Community Radio, live and local in the Catskill Mountains. You can catch us here, 91.3 FM, MTC Cable Channel 20, 107.5 FM on the campus of SUNY Delhi, and everywhere at WIOXradio.org. You can also find the Empower Hour with Don Wyckoff on Spotify, Amazon, and all the podcasty places. Please keep dropping the lines on Facebook. It is blowing me away. I just want to say shout out to Moses in South Africa. Thank you, Moses, for reaching out. I love the fact that you are doing what you're doing. We certainly will set up the WhatsApp interview, but I just wanted to give you a shout out for reaching out on the page, and thank you, buddy. We're back with Mr. Jeff Doyle, and we're having a story about how we come as men into this world ready to just attack, kill, and drag it to the cave kind of mentality. But somewhere around 25, 30 years old, we start to realize that, hey, women have feelings and people matter. Other than me.
Yeah.
You find yourself on that path. You got yourself a woman of your dreams.
Yes.
And you've been together now, what, 18 years? 18 years, right.
Yeah.
So that is a beautiful story in itself. How does this weave into... Do you notice the parallels, though, Jeff, that every time you stayed close to what you were passionate about, it became a success? You see that?
I do.
Everything you have ever touched with your passion was successful, dude. Your bands were successful. Your relationships, after realizing and making adjustments that I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to repeat that. I'm going to take what I learned that was good and use it. I'm going to throw out what was bad, and I'm willing and open to learn more. That kind of personality, man, is going to give you spiritual growth, whether you believe in a spiritual realm or not. You are a spirit, dude. I know that we are eternal. We just keep doing this, right? Without branching off into that, I find it refreshing when people tap into their true who they are, the true emotions, being willing to cry in front of people because I'm a man, but I'm a man with emotion. Who cares? And not caring what everybody else thinks gave you this ability to be respected in your community, to put on plays. And you started out jamming there. And the next thing you know, through the years of just focused intention of being around what you love to do, what is passionate to you, and sharing it with your kids, with your wife, with your community, it was a no-brainer who was going to be the director of that Foothills, because you had and showed and demonstrated consistently the passion that it requires to do such a job. And you've done a great job with it, man.
It was actually the birth of my son and the guy that I was still waiting tables at the Corfu Diner after Aiden was born, and the guy, his name was Patrick Lippincott, came in and said, hey, looking for some help down the street there. If you got if you need any extra cash, I know you just had a kid, so you probably use some extra money.
Oh, okay. I just had to get it in context because I know Pat very well. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So that's how I ended up working down there at Foothills as a part-time assistant to the technical director. Mm-hmm. And then one thing led to another, and here we are. I've been working at Foothills as long as I've been with my wife.
I know, and that's amazing, dude. It's amazing. And you found a career and a life worth living.
Yeah.
You have connected with think about this, everything you've ever fancied, from music to bands to comedy to acting to the entertainment spectrum.
Yeah.
You are immersed in it daily.
Yes.
Sometimes our life has a focus. We know what our interest is, but we never really know what the end game's going to be.
I agree.
But if you stay connected with what your passions are, the things that excite you, stay around those people, places, and things, and inevitably, it's just a matter of announcing what your interests are, and people loving to be the connection, the conduit to connect people with opportunity. It's a no-brainer that they're going to embrace that kind of energy and bring it up. So if I were going to suggest anything to anyone, going through very similar things, finding yourself in life, trying to figure out what your purpose is and what are you supposed to do, first of all, let's take a look at our age.
Yeah.
If you have not reached 25, 30 years old yet, dude, just relax. It will slow down and you will be able to use your brain without the baby batter on there all the time, right? Once that happens, you can become open and become, and then it's just a matter of really doing exactly that. People say it all the time, but it is the simplest way, period, to change the rest of your life is to figure out what it is that you would do for the rest of your life if you didn't owe anybody, if it didn't cost you anything. It's not about the resources. It's not about job availability. What would you do for the rest of your day? If you can figure that out, then I do something called subcategorical analyzation. For me, when I was a kid, dude, I wanted to do archaeology.
Yeah.
My dad looked at me one day. I'll never forget it. I was like, yeah, Dad, I would love to be an archaeologist because I just loved history and stuff, right? But dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember him looking at me, just looked over, and he's like, I'd apparently already told him 20 other things that I wanted to do. And I want to be an actor. I want to be a DJ. I want to be an actor. I want to do all these things. And he just says, boy, listen, when you see anybody digging dinosaur bones here, you got to use your brain. Look where you are. Look what's possible, blah, blah, blah. And that is where I started to understand, oh, you live in the box. That's the box that everybody's talking about. These confines that are shaped by the people we work with, our family, our friends, and our school. What we see as possible is within that. I always knew, dude, I can do all of those things. And I did those things. I did every one of those things right down to the radio. And it was things that I had no reason to believe I could do, but because they were in my brain all the time of what I was fascinated to want to be a part of, the opportunities continually fell in line because I was sincere and honest about it, Yeah. And then a life change happens. And when you know that, it's impossible for me not to go shout it out and tell everybody I can. And all the people I work with at the Catskill Center, for instance, the people that we're working with, I spend most of the time just getting them to understand that no matter where you are, you matter. You matter, man. And you can make a difference no matter where you are or what you think you are. You can make a difference. You know what I mean? I know that sounds contrived, and it's like one of those things that everybody says, but I've proved it. Not just me, people like you who step in my studio and tell their story, and they realize, the listener realizes that this is very similar to me. What did he do different? So it sounds like what you did different was you stayed focused to what that one snapshot in the beginning, sitting on the floor with your mom and a Coke. It's one of those moments that just captured you enough to make a shot of that this was important. Family was important. Communication was important. The female energy of compassion and empathy was important. That was captured in that snapshot. And that's why I asked that question. I always like to weed that in and let you see why you had that in your brain.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So what are some of the tips, man, that you would say to a person trying to get their life together that wants to just take a new path? They've figured it out, man. You know what? He's right. If there's no limitations, I'd want to do this. Like I was going to branch off, I was saying about the subcategorical analyzation. What is it about archaeology that I liked? Well, it was being out by myself, working with the land, working with the dirt, and uncovering and touching something, being the first person to touch it since the day it dropped. Well, when I started to look at what are all those things, metal detecting. Dude, I didn't need to be an archaeologist. I became a metal detectorist, and it fulfilled all of that. I connected with people, places, and things that furthered it along. I became an expert at it. I started getting paid for it. And then I was doing reviews and stuff. I was doing all kinds of crazy things. Then I got bored. I still metal detect, but I don't go out teaching or doing any of that anymore. I do it for me.
Sure.
But the point is, the process is always like that. Just figure out what it is that you're passionate about. Do a little subcategorical analysis. What is it about this that makes me feel this? And where else could I plug in? I don't care if you're in Otsego, New York, or if you're in New York City. There's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. And it's always connect with that calling, that nudge, and just keep following the signs, man.
You know, I think the most important thing I've found as, I have become a family man and a guy who's had the same job for 18 years and all that. I found it was important to not let things get too repetitious or too comfortable. Mm-hmm. I don't have that problem at my job because every week is a different week.
I literally watch you like a chicken with your head cut off, running around from one end to the other.
Absolutely right. We're doing 52 events on average every month. And no week is the same. So, like this, here's a good for instance. Today, I picked up a hospital bed from you and then turned it into a tabletop. I put a piece of wood on top and had to make a frame, and then we did graffiti on some sheets and hung it up on some chain link fence. And I've never done any of that before.
Yeah, right.
That was all first time stuff, and I've been working there for 18 years.
Yeah, but how cool is it to be challenged outside of your comfort zone and then challenged with find a solution, Jeff?
Exactly.
And then make it happen. It's so fulfilling, man.
Yes, absolutely.
If you live in your comfort zone, you will never achieve, I don't want to say greatness, but you'll never achieve what you're capable of.
I think
you gotta step out of the comfort zone.
I agree most definitely, and certainly with this job, I've had the experience of stepping out of my comfort zone frequently, especially early on when I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But they don't say the cliche "don't you fake it till you make it" it's a saying for a reason.
It's true
because I know a lot now that I didn't know 18 years ago, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But, and again, when it comes to the, keeping things interesting, like you said, you got to keep those hobbies. I'm still making music in my little basement studio. Mm-hmm. I just released an album last year.
That's right.
I've got another one I'm working on right now, and it's just for me now.
Well, I was going to say, you could be stingy with it if you want to.
Yeah.
You could share the files with me so I could let the folks of WIOX and
it's all on streaming on all the major streaming platforms, and it's on Bandcamp. I'm not trying to make any money off of it anymore, which is really freeing. If I'm being honest,
dude, this is why I just want to say you just nailed it for me.
Yeah,
I don't do this to be world famous podcaster, Don.
Yep.
I do this because my kids and their grandkids and grandkids after that are going to learn about the lineage of their family, their heritage through these things. And in those episodes that they'll hear 20 years from now, they'll hear lessons they're not prepared to understand now.
Sure.
And these are things that can help move along a generation, So that's why I do it. And I don't attach it to money. And because of that, I'm now in 12 countries, dude.
Yeah.
That's bananas,
That's
man.
amazing.
Who seriously? I mean, yeah, it's 0.2% in Zimbabwe, but hey, somebody is going, oh my God, it's the Empower Hour. And I think that's so cool, man. But it was unintentional. It's not about making money. It's not about advertisers or none of that. I don't care about it. I tell people all the time, subscribe or not, I don't give a shit. Crap, you know what I mean?
Cool. It is really important to do things just because you find pleasure in them.
Well, then you're going to be your most genuine, authentic self.
All right.
I think that's the case, you know, and I think that's the thing that has always made me like you is you are 100% authentic and genuine. You've been since the day I met you. There's nothing I'm trying to get from you, free tickets or any of that stuff, man. You've actually given me a lot of opportunities. I actually wanted to share one thing. When we step out of our comfort zone, often we're faced with the inevitable failures that can come as a result. And it's what we do within those failures. It's the moment that it either stifles all the progress or it's the thing that builds the character to thicken you to move faster and more and just do better. I had that experience, and I want to share something with you because I hadn't talked to you about this since. I was doing a comedy show. I had done a couple with you before. They were successful. They went good, right? Everything was good. And actually, my very first time doing comedy, and this is what I mean about these serendipitous connections, Jeff called me and he said, "Hey, man, you want to do you want to host for a comedy show?" And I said, "Yeah, what's that?" Mark Norman. What? He's like the biggest comedian I could have possibly ever had the opportunity to meet, let alone do 15 minutes and open with. That was amazing, right?
Yeah.
And somehow I pulled that off. It was, in retrospect, I looked at it, I was like, okay, I can do better. Let me tighten this up. Boom, I did a couple more. Next thing you know, I was working with Andy Pitts and I was traveling, I was doing shows and I was like getting good at it, right?
Yeah.
So what happens after a while, though, is once you get comfortable, you get a little too comfortable. Now, I have a process before I go into any show. I meditate. I see dude, I knew the stage to how many steps it was going to take me to open from stage right and just get to the stage, grab the mic, and right on cue with the music. You know how that...
Oh, yeah.
How that is, man.
Nail that intro.
Yeah, and I just wanted to nail that intro. And so I get there on this day, and you tell me that, oh, there's more people, and we moved it to a different location. Dude, that in an instant just took all the weight, all the wind out of my sails. In an instant, I was like, panic mode hit. Amateur came out. I couldn't hear the music as I was coming out, and I couldn't get there in time. And when I got there, the mic battery case, do you remember that?
Oh no!
Came off the microphone, man. So I'm sitting there, and as I'm fumbling and all this, I am realizing panic, and I'm feeling the color, and I'm feeling my face, and I just know that this is, in my mind, there's no way to come around it. So I get off stage, I completely feel crushed, and my first reactions were, why didn't they have a freaking wired mic? And why did you have to move it last minute without letting me know? What I heard next was, why didn't you prepare for the unknown? Why didn't you prepare if things went bad? Why didn't you prepare to overcome these very common things that happen on stage? Ultimately, it was a learning experience for me.
Sure.
And I found gratitude after I left and really ate it and felt it and knew that this wasn't anybody else. This was my doing. I had all the material, but I could not put it together in any cohesive, and a lot of it was from a show you saw before.
Yeah.
It was delivered, no problem in those shows.
Not your first rodeo.
No, and this was just an absolute. So here's the point. The point is that if you're not prepared and accept that you may fail, you'll never reach out there and do it. You'll never give it your all. You'll always play safe. And as soon as that happens, you're stuck. You're not going to go any further.
Sure.
After that, I went out and I did some more shows. And I took what I learned from that and realized that, and I changed the way I approached the stage. So it was a learning experience that you gave me. You gave me my first and you gave me my last in comedy, and I want to thank you for that, man, as far as my last there at the Foothills.
Yeah. Not forever.
But I also want to let you know that I fully intend to come back, and I want to do another show, but this show will be much truer to who I am than what I was trying to create. I was creating a character, and I wasn't being my authentic self. And in my authentic self, I don't have to think.
Yeah.
It's already there.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Jimmy McCartney's coming to town on July 28th, and I need an MC.
You got it, dude. I'm going to say yes right now live.
Beautiful.
And I will not fail. There's no way I'm going to fail.
I know you won't.
I know what happened. I know what I did wrong. I know what my part was. But a lot of people have a hard time accepting that, you know, what they've did. It's so much easier to be a victim in this world. It's so much easier to lay blame and cast stones. But in everything that has ever happened to me, good and bad, it has always been because of me. The energies that I put in, the places I ended up, I mean, the decisions I made, it's ultimately always the decisions we make. You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly say the majority of things I regret and the majority of things that have been the best decisions of my life were all things that I did one way or the other. So, yeah, absolutely.
But ultimately, you know, the guide that I see in you, dude, is like, there's such a beautiful, like, dude, I don't want to sound all, you know,
come on,
bromancy,
let it out.
But dude, well, your beard, man, it's your beard. I gotta tell you, that is just a hell of a beard. I'm getting there, buddy.
Look.
I've been growing this for what, 19, 20 years, and I've got about a half an inch. I look like a dog with rabies and like mange when I grow mine out.
Stop. You are a blonde-haired, blue-eyed bombshell.
Oh, yeah. That's
better
what it is.
relax.
Yeah. I wanted the beard, though. You know what I mean? I just don't have it in me, man.
Look, I lost all my hair, so I get to have the beard. all
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Let me
even
have this.
that was let me have this. Listen, dude, I know that too because it was the last show we were playing the New Jersey State Fair with Bad Uncle Sam, and I was watching the video. We won best band out of 3 states. It was Juan. Finally brought him in.
Yeah.
It was just a great show, and I'm watching the video, dude, and I'm like, wow, I can't wait to put this up. Oh, there's no way I'm putting this up. Because as I'm sitting up there, I'm jamming out on the drum riser, man. You know what I mean? And I'm just back and forth. And all I could see is what looks like a pink yarmulke on the back of my dome, dude. I had identified so long as this long-haired rocker, and now I am seeing it in real time that I am not what I think I am. This is a character. But you know what the most amazing thing was? We won that battle. We stepped off the stage, and all these people out there, right? Nobody knew me. Not a soul came up and was like, hey, blah, blah. They only knew the character. When I was back in my hair and just doing my thing, nobody even knew me. And that's when it really became clear to me that I am not supposed to do this. I was supposed to do this to train the confidence and get the abilities and all that, but this ain't what I'm supposed to be doing.
I definitely... I remember, being a character at one point in my life.
We all
and having to be a persona that wasn't authentically who I am. And certainly, I'll still have to turn on the customer service charm from time to time. Mm-hmm. But it is really comforting to know and to get to that point in your life when you are able to say, this is who I am. I'm proud of who I am now, especially when, you can look back and be like, I don't even recognize that guy anymore.
Right, yeah. I've heard that story repeated many times from folks that I've known for a long time.
I bet.
I see the evolution, and I always see it as it's an inward knowing. It's the spiritual knowing. I don't know if you know this, Jeff, but Harvard University, Stanford University, Colgate University, Dell, I can't remember, in Norway, they are now saying consciousness is separate from your body. Non-local consciousness has already been proven. We already know that the CIA literally has put out declassified things to say that we have been studying remote viewing.
Yes, true.
Which means that is non-local consciousness. That means that we are separate from this physical being. That sounds crazy. I would love to dump all of my things on you and send you a few links to listen to if you don't mind. Maybe we can get together again sometime and talk it out. But with everything that you've lived so far and you've learned, what do you think the biggest message to your kids would be, your kids' kids, your grandkids, the people that will hear these years from now? What do you think the biggest lesson would be that you've learned in a minute?
That's a tough one. I mean, I've got an idea of what I want to say. It's a matter of putting it into words.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you got a few more minutes that you can hang out with me?
I can hang out for a few.
Okay, man. I'm going to do this. Folks, I want to again thank you very much for listening to WIOX 91.3 live and local in the Catskill Mountains. You can catch us also on MTC Cable Channel 20, 107.5 FM on the campus of SUNY Delhi and everywhere at WIOXradio.org. You can also catch the Empower Hour with Don Wyckoff on Spotify, Facebook, all those podcasty places.